Hello, TEDxHCMIU. So let me start with a question. For you, can you think of one thing that you're most certain about? For me, the only certain thing about life is uncertainty. So how can an 18-year-old or 20-something-year-old person be certain of who they are? At 18, I moved out of my parents' house and started living on my own, hoping that I could somehow figure my life. And I tried really, really hard. I talked to friends, successful people. I've read books, especially the self-help books. And with the hope that these inputs will help me to figure out who I really am, let me show you this. So this is 10% of my Finding Myself book. And many more at home. Many more at home. I was an obsession about it. Ironically, the more I read, the more I got lost. Now, looking back, I figure out why this happened. My inputs and outputs were unbalanced. And let me explain this principle to you. So in life, the input is what we learn and acquire, while the output is our action. And I did have way too many inputs from different people, different sources, different books. It is the same. Basically, the inputs, what we read, the media that we consume. When we wake up in the morning, we look at our phone, reading the news, browsing the social media, and seeing other people's successes and beauty. Okay? So our minds keep receiving intentionally and unintentionally the inputs. Yet, I didn't have enough outputs as action to balance. So our vision of life, of success, of who we are constantly changes and got affected by the inputs we have. As a result, we felt more and more uncertain and lost. And most people don't create enough outputs, to avoid getting carried away by the flood of inputs that we have. Outputting is when we can take the knowledge that we learn from other people, transform it, customize it, personalize it, and make it ours. The outputs could be tangible actions like what you say, what you write, or this TEDx speech I'm doing here. Or the output could be intangible that nobody can see. It could be the diaries that you write, the journal that you write. Or it could be intangible, like how you're writing your assignments, generate the thoughts, the ideas. And the output don't need to see by others. Like, go back in the day, honestly, I did write a lot of diaries and journals. Of course now, I kept it in a very secret place that nobody can touch it. Yeah, but somehow the way that I wrote my thoughts out really helped me go through the tough days and clarify the confusion. Yeah, and that's the process. Outputs are to produce something. That's the process that we do. We learn, we make mistakes, we understand ourselves, and get better at crafting your own person. However, I thought, if I create the outputs, for myself, I learn, I got the benefits, I get a good job, I keep develop myself. Is it okay? It's all my benefits. Is it okay? And yes, that's totally fine. But I realized it also could be more than that. It could be something that's bigger than just ourselves. Because we're all connected here. We're all connected. And we are fulfilled when we can be of service to one another. So take it as an example. Knowledge is not like an apple. Yeah, a tangible thing like an apple. When you share an apple with someone, you might lose it. But when you share something that you've learned, you enrich someone else's mind and yours as well. So realizing that, I try to expand my output more, something more than my own growth. Taking it into an interpersonal level is how we share our knowledge, So standing at TEDx Talk today is one of the output, sharing the stories with you. And of course, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me. So during the past 10 years of my career, since 2012 until now, I tried really hard to expand my outputs to the communities. I said yes to almost every opportunities that I got. Being an MC when I was younger, speaking at the universities, empower young people, and teaching at the universities, different topics. I would try my best to convert my inputs into meaningful outputs. Participating a lot of volunteering events. And if you were my friends, some of my friends here, and you follow my social media back then, you might see my face almost everywhere. At the university events, at startup events, conferences, social events, And as a result, this really gave me a depiction of who I am. So, being more conscious of our, outputs is what we are giving back to the world, and we create, we define ourselves by serving others. That sounds nice. However, I felt there was something here. I felt outputting into many different areas could be counterproductive. It's overwhelming and draining. And again, I lost track of who I am. I keep doing things. I'm thinking if I kept doing things this way, I would be very exhausted. I had no weekends. Imagine having your faces everywhere is exhausting, right? And I think there might be a different way to manage my inputs and output, especially when I have these little ones. This was the time that I decided that I need to choose my input and output very carefully. So when we choose, selective input and we are mindful of the outputs, we create more values. So how can I be selective? Right? And I believe that we will all have to go to the stage. We have to, no shortcut. There's no shortcut. We have to go through the stages where we first gathering as much inputs as possible and try, to produce the outputs. And then you narrow down and you are so good at a specific area. I'm sure when you reach a stage, you would know how to choose wisely because the input and output process would be absolutely natural. So this is the process that all of us will go through in life. And it's very normal that you might feel lost because you're still at exploring stage. So the principle here is very simple. Too many inputs, like reading books, reading news, talk to people, getting advices, too many inputs without actions or outputs is a waste of your time. What is it for, right? On the other hand, too many outputs, doing crazy things every day, every week, too many outputs without continuous inputs, you would produce something low quality. So the input and output principle really helped me navigate my life, and I hope this would help you too. So managing the input and output is a continuous process, and I truly hope that you will enjoy this journey. So what happened in the last 10 minutes? You are listening, and you are getting the input from me, right? So if you get the input from me, and there is no plan for actions maybe later, it would be a waste of your time, right? Listening to her, and then what? So here are the 3 things that I would recommend you to create the outputs out of my speech. So the first, you go home first, validate your inputs and see, is there anything that you could change? Second, make a list of the outputs and make sure that you review it weekly. You don't want to make a list and then never touch it again. And finally, think of a project and see how you can use your knowledge and skills to help the world. Thank you.